Do you ever feel like working out is the last thing you want to do, whether you just have a busy schedule or maybe you just lack motivation? Trust me, I've been there. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 simple steps that you can follow that will not only help you flip the switch, but also help you crush your workouts even on the tough days. If you're brand new to this channel, my name is Coach Royce. I've been a personal trainer for 15 plus years, and we've helped thousands of people get towards their health goals. With that said, let's jump right into it. Tip number 1 is you don't have a motivation problem. You may have a dopamine problem. Here's the deal. Dopamine is a feel-good chemical. It's what drives us to seek rewards, seek pleasure, and it's what allows us to just do more. So what's the problem? We're surrounded by quick hits of dopamine all day long. Social media, binge watching TV, and junk food. These things are constantly spiking our dopamine levels so high that we feel drained after it, which leaves us no energy to do these harder things like working out. In the 15 years of training, I've noticed that the clients that lack the motivation the most are often abusing this particular system. So coach, what should I do then? The first thing we implement is something we call social media intermittent fasting. And all this really is you're consuming social media in a particular block of time. So for myself, I don't consume any social media that's not in between the hours of 12 to about 6. In the years of training clients, I've noticed the ones that lack the most motivation are often the ones watching social media the first half of their day. And when we start to omit this little portion of what they're doing in terms of their habits, I find them more successful in working out. And the reason for that is they start seeking out dopamine an entirely different way. And that's through movement, that's through exercise, and that's through doing hard work. So just by delaying your intent to watch social media has really resulted in them continually doing the workouts on a daily basis. So if you are working out, if you want to work out in the morning, delay social media as much as you possibly can. If you are going to work out in the evening, delay it even longer, where you're not consuming any social media until you're done working out. Now, the next thing here is really simple. Just try to remove all of the junk food. And the reason for that is a lot of the junk food that we consume are extremely sugary, that once we start to consume these foods, our dopamine spikes up really, really high. So again, I like to delay my foods a little bit because of that particular reason. And the other side to it is the meal that I consume are typically not rich in sugar. It's not extremely tasty. It's enough that's going to fuel my body to move, and it's going to fuel my brain, and it's going to fuel my body to recover. So typically right at noon, I'm consuming something that is high protein and high vegetable with minimal amount of carbs. Now, if I'm working out extremely hard in the morning, typically I'll have a little bit more carbs, but at the end of the day, I'm not eating a bunch of sugary foods before my workout and even in my post-workout. So I limit the junk food as much as I possibly can. Now, another thing that you can do inside your workouts is to just pair it with something you also love to do. Now, I do like working out in general, but there are certain days where I'm not as motivated to do the workout. So instead of just going through the workout that's grueling by itself, I tend to pair it with things that I truly enjoy or truly that allows me to feel good, which is the dopamine that's being released. So things that I do inside the workout is I'll listen to an audible, I'll put a sermon on, I'll even listen to music that I typically enjoy, but those are going to be some things that you can implement with the work that you want to do so you can still gradually get that dopamine release. Now, the final thing that I implement for myself, but I also implement for my clients, is implementing a reward system. I'm a big proponent of reward meals as opposed to cheat meals. And reward meals indicate that you do a set amount of work. And that work oftentimes that I do for myself and the work that I do for my clients is some type of exercise. Now, it doesn't necessarily even have to be intense. It could be just walking, it could be stretching, or it could be a hard workout. But what this allows us to do is now it ties the dopamine system in a way that If we do these exercises, then the body will release dopamine by the consumption of some of your favorite foods. Remember, it's not about focusing on motivation. In fact, it's about shifting your brain on how it gets its reward. And when you have this concept dialed in, it's going to make going to the gym a whole lot easier for you. Tip number 2 is to upgrade your to-dos to to-deletes. Here's the truth. Sometimes it's not about adding more things to your plate. Instead, try removing them. One of the best ways you can do right now is just to remove things that doesn't serve you, that's getting in the way of you working out. Here's how you do it in 3 simple steps. Now, the first step is to first audit your time. Spend the next day or 2 just tracking all of the work tasks, all of the social media you're consuming, and even the times when you're eating a bunch of junk food. What you'll find is you're spending a lot of energy and time doing things that don't necessarily serve you. Step 2, now that you've audited your time, it's time to diminish, it's time to delete. Ask yourself, do I really need to spend 1 to 2 hours watching Netflix or scrolling through social media? You gotta be ruthless here. Either decide to diminish the time that you're spending on those activities or delete them entirely. By freeing up that space, you can create energy for motivation to actually do something healthy for the body, whether it's to work out or something else. Now, here's the final step. Trade those time wasters for activities that's going to naturally boost your dopamine in a healthy way. Some examples are going for a walk, taking a dance break, doing a 15-minute stretch session. By doing some of these activities, you'll naturally boost your dopamine. It'll allow you to feel a little bit better, but also will build enough dopamine that you will potentially do some of the bigger workouts that require even more motivation. So the next time you're struggling to find time or you're just lacking motivation, I encourage you to upgrade your to-do list to a to-delete list. And the way you do that is to audit your time, diminish or delete those activities not serving you, and then trade those with activities that do. And when you do that, you'll find the time to work out, but you'll also stay and get motivated to work out. All right, so I get asked a lot, especially doing the 1,000 days of Murph or doing some crazy workouts in between, about what is the hardest part of the workout. And as I reflected over the years, I realized that it wasn't the pull-ups, it wasn't the air squats, it wasn't the push-ups, it wasn't even about the vest, it was not even the 1,000th Murph, it wasn't even the first Murph. As I reflected, I realized that the hardest part of that workout is just the first step. Now, here's the reason why the first step is so important to me. I realized each step, I started to gain a little bit of momentum. You get this small dopamine release. The second step, you get a little bit more. Eventually, you start getting into the reps, and then the squats, and then the run. And eventually, you build up enough momentum, enough dopamine to just finish the workout you intended to do. And beyond that workout, I find myself doing even more things outside of my workout space, so into my life. So that's why I always remind myself, especially in moments where I feel like not doing anything, or there's a lot of friction from me just doing the workout, I remind myself that the hardest part of all of my workouts has always been just the first step. So this is why this final tip is so powerful. Creating anchor thoughts that's going to allow you to do the first rep. So it's important to create a thought playlist, just like you have a music playlist to get you pumped up to go work out. You need a thought playlist to at least get you to a place where you take the first step. Because if you take the first step, you'll take the second one. And if you take the second one, you might take the third one. And then you find yourself with all this momentum to just finish what you started. Now, coach, what if I don't have any anchor thoughts? That's okay. You can borrow one of the 3 that we're about to give you right now. Now, the first one you can borrow is the one that I use regularly. It's the one that we just talked about, is the hardest part of the workout is always the first step. Now, the next anchor thought that I use is this is where most people quit, but I'm not like most people. There's something powerful when I recite this, that I'm doing something where people quit a majority of the time. And it sounds a little prideful, but it really has served me especially in moments where I just feel defeated, especially feel where I'm not motivated or I just want to quit. So when I'm in those moments, I recite this. And then again, it allows me to just take the first step. And then next thing you know, you're just doing the whole thing. All right, anchor thought number 3 is this is the best part of the journey, even though it doesn't feel like it. I remind myself this every single day. I remind my clients, I remind my coaches that it's always about the journey. It's always about the growth that's happening in between. It's always about the troubles you're experiencing, because troubles are the trophy. We focus on the trophy, but at the end of the day, anytime I get a trophy, I rarely remember that. I remember the adversities. I remember the troubles. I remember the friction points. Those are the ones that are embedded in my mind. And it's nice to remind yourself that this is the actual best part. And when you start to realize that is the best part, you're more likely again to take that first step. Here's the key. You have to have these anchor thoughts everywhere. You need them on your phone. You need them on your desk. You need them on your fridge. Wherever you go, it needs to be in front of you, because you may never know when you actually need it. And when you find yourself not motivated, feeling defeated, wanting to quit, you're going to find yourself reciting some of these anchor thoughts. And then those anchor thoughts are going to embed you at least that first action, which is taking that first step. Because that first step is the hardest step. And if you can do that first step, you'll be able to do the rest of what's in front of you. So those are my anchor thoughts. If you want to borrow them, go for it. If you have your own anchor thoughts, comment below. I'd love to borrow them for myself. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 3 simple tips that you can use to get you motivated to work out. Remember, it's not a motivation problem. It's a dopamine problem. And instead of doing to-do list, upgrade to doing a to-delete list. And the final thing is to make sure to create anchor thoughts that are just going to get you to do the first step. Now, here are your action plans for this week, especially if you're feeling unmotivated. Take your shoes, put them on, tie them, and just take the first step. You'll be very surprised how small of an action can lead to larger and larger actions, so you can get after it. If you like this episode, you're probably going to like this episode. Coach Nick and I talked about the power of thoughts and how changing your thoughts can change your life. Click on this link, and I'll see you guys on the next one.